Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News.
For a conversation on the back and forth between the Ninth Senate of the Nigerian National Assembly and some civil society groups in Nigeria over plans by the Senate leadership to purchase luxury cars for senators up to the tune of about 5.5 billion naira. We are now being joined here by Adetokunbo Mumuni, an attorney and executive director of Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability, SERAP. Mumuni, you are welcome to the morning show.
It's a pleasure being here.
Yeah, what is this problem about senators getting, official cars? You know, in Nigeria, it's standard practice to give, public officials occupying certain positions official cars. I don't know. What's the problem? You want them to ride bicycles or to go about on motorcycles? Because many Nigerians will say, given their status, I mean, they should have nice cars. Okay. What is called status car in Nigeria.
Okay, let me say straight away that when you say you are serving a group of people, you have to serve not only with honesty, but with humility. Now, the first question that this raises is to ask, where are the cars bought for the 8th Senate? Are they saying the lifespan of the cars, the usable lifespan of the cars, should terminate every 4 years? The 7th Senate also bought cars. Because we didn't ask this question, what happened to the car bought by the 7th Senate? That is why the 8th Senate bought cars, and they are now trying to paper over the track to say, let's move to the 9th Senate. So those are the issues. Cars are not expendable commodities. They are not fuel. They are not engine oils. That when you use it, it evaporates. Cars are substance that can be seen. So let us first of all ask ourselves, where are the cars bought by the 8th Senate? So if we receive adequate or reasonable explanation as to what happened to the car bought for the 8th Senate, then we can now say, let's see whether the 9th Senate should have cars, but should it even be at that humongous amount that they seek to assign for the purchase of these luxurious cars?
So is this a class action lawsuit, and how did it come about?
Yes, you see, we conceive SERAP and Enough is Enough and Budget conceived of this action. We now invited any Nigerian that is interested in the pursuit of the matter to join us. And that was why we have about 6,721 Nigerians joining us in the suit.
How did it come about? What made you decide to go to court? Was there any prior communication? Was there any correspondence between yourselves and the 9th Senate? And then it now escalated. Oh, let me let you get your story.
So what happened was that when people see that you have an idea and they are interested in it, they are bound to join, even if you don't call them. They can even apply to court to say, court, please join us in this matter, we are interested. Those are the principles stated in green and green as the basis, a Supreme Court decision that was decided around 1990 or so, that those are the basic requirements that you have to meet. Tell us what is your interest in this matter. Tell us why we should join you as a party. But without making an application to join, you can join any person you agree with in respect of whatever he wants to pursue in court.
I asked you if you ever communicated directly and expressed your objection to the 9th National Assembly, and what was the response? How did things escalate to filing a lawsuit?
Good. There is nothing in the law saying you must communicate to the other party first before you go to court.
No, there isn't.
So once you know that these are the things that you think somebody who should be a defendant in the suit is doing, which you do not agree with, you can go to court immediately. That's the point that led us to court. Because we've been dragging a lot of issues earlier. They budgeted so much amount for themselves in terms of welcome packages. The National Assembly members, they also budgeted so much amount of money for themselves in terms of severance packages. We are still on that. We wrote them, they never budged. We are in court in respect of that. But this amount to us sounds terrible. 5.5 billion in an economy that is paying 30,000 naira to workers that we have not even seen any government paid.
Can a court, do you think a court can reverse this decision and ensure that they spend less on their cars? Or really and truly, do you think it may just be a waste of time because some way, somehow, they still always get away with these things?
No, if we think they can get away with it, that is left for the Nigerians to decide. But the truth of the matter is that you can submit any reasonable argument to the court. Let them come and tell us their own position in respect of the matter. We've said what they are doing is a violation of Section 57, Subsection 4 of the Procurement Act 2007. We said what they have done is a violation of the oath which they took to act in the best economic interest of Nigerians. So if we have submitted issues to the court, it is left for the court to decide one way or the other. We are not saying compulsorily the court must rule in our favor, but the court will be an arbiter, an independent arbiter in this matter, so that we see how it goes. Yes.
The spokesperson for the Senate,
yes,
Senator Dayo Adeyeye,
yes,
he already made some statements about this matter. He says, for example, that the lawsuit is an exercise in futility,
good,
that you are acting on the basis of rumor, that he, as a senator and a spokesperson for the Senate, is not even aware that there is anything about purchase of cars. And he has also raised the question that why are you focusing on the Senate? There is standard practice for, arms of government to buy vehicles. Why are you not talking about official cars for persons in the executive arm of government or persons in the judiciary? And that in any case, the Senate cannot buy vehicles if those vehicles are not budgeted for. And if it's in the budget of the Senate, it's purely legal. And so why are you just raising unnecessary costs? So what is your response to all these, statements?
To the argument that it is rumor. So let them come and deny it before the court. That is first. The next question is whether we are focusing on the legislators. We left the judiciary or the executive out of it. It is not a question of focus. It's whatever arises in the public layer that we take up. So we are all against wastage of the Nigerian patrimony. We are all against, no matter from whichever branch of government we see it, we'll take it up. So what we have had is what we are acting on. So if they now think that it is not true, let them come and tell the court, let them depose to an observer that this point that we are making is not true.
What exactly are the reliefs that you're seeking?
No, we are asking that the court should insist that the National Assembly not spend this money until the various issues that you are submitted to the court for determination is resolved. One, you cannot say you are trying to enforce or carry out a law and you violate an existing law. That is one. You cannot say you are trying to enforce a law and you say you are violating the oath which you took. So those to us are fundamental questions which must be resolved. Because the first thing you take as a public officer, either a legislator, a judicial officer, or executive, is the oath that is contained in the Constitution. And once you have taken that oath, that you will act in the best economic interest of the well-being of Nigerians, then whatever you do that is contrary to that, we are entitled to take you up on it.
I'd like to just echo something that Dr. Abasi just asked you about why the focus is on the Senate and not on other arms of governments as well. Have you budget and EIE looked into other budgets that are going out in other arms of government, or did you just choose this one as your main focus?
Because what we saw is that this is a matter that should interest the public, is a matter which, taken as it is, to us does not agree with public good. And that is, it has come into open. Unless we want to say we want to pretend and nothing is happening, and they now go after it and decide to do it, and we now start chasing the shadow after a lot of them have gone on hurry.
Well, see, Mumuni, some of these things sound academic to me.
You see,
let's look at it from a cultural perspective.
Good.
One of the things Senator Adeyeye said while, defending the Senate is that, look, he doesn't see himself, you know, as a person, as a senator, using a car that had been used by a former member of the Senate.
Thank you.
Right? And that once the thing is budgeted for, is part of the entitlement of senators to be, you know, to make them comfortable. You know, they have this settlement, you know, settling down.
They can't be comfortable in a 4-year-old car.
And you know, vehicles are depreciated.
Good.
You know, but let's hold on. Let's take a short break, and then when we come back, you can respond to that issue. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. You're still watching The Morning Show here on the Arise News channel, and we have with us in the studio Adetokunbo Mumuni, a legal practitioner and executive director of Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP. And we've been discussing the plan by members of Nigeria's Senate, in the Ninth National Assembly, to purchase cars up to the tune of about 5.5 billion naira for members of that Senate. And before we went on break, Mumuni, I had asked you, I said, look, there's a cultural side to this. There is a psychological side to it, which was indicated again in the response by the spokesperson of the Senate, that you cannot legitimately expect, senators of the Federal Republic who refer to themselves as distinguished senators to use used cars that have been used by members of the former National Assembly. Shouldn't it be the focus of your suit? Shouldn't it be that you will be asking the court to hold members of the 8th Assembly accountable and insist that maybe the vehicles that they use be returned? But even if you are going to ask for that, note that this time around, the Senate is saying that the money for the vehicles will be taken from the allowances of the senators. So it's not as if these vehicles are just donated by the state to them as official cars. They also invariably, in the course of the 4 years, pay for the vehicles.
Good. If the vehicles are to be met out of the allowance already budgeted to them,
yes.
Oh, it's fair.
Yes, that's one of the
explanations. No, you see, let's get it straight. Senator Adeyeye, first of all, said we are banking, we are acting on rumor. So if that is to say, those facts that we are alleged are not true. So why are you defending when they are not true? So the next thing is, I don't know, let's look at these senators. Let's take them one after the other. What were they before they became senators? We don't know, we don't know their fathers, that they have big inheritances. So to say because you are a senator of Nigeria, you have to live big and voluminous, to us doesn't make sense. You see, let's take the average director in a company, a private company. Does a director in a private company change car every 4 years? So if you are representing us, you cannot say you have to live over and above us, because that will not be master-servant relationship. It will not just gel. So let us get it straight. If he says it's not true, let them come and tell the court that we are acting on rumors, so that the court will say, as a matter of fact, the facts that we allege are not true, then it will be on that basis that it will be struck out. Now, if they say it is part of the allowances, let us know. You see, when things happen like this and you don't challenge it, that is when we allow a lot of things to go on wrongly. I don't know about cultural perspective. I don't know about any other perspective. The only perspective that I know is the perspective of law and ethics. And when you say this is governance, it has to be governance with ethics, it has to be governance with sincerity, it has to be governance with accountability.
And cultures can always be changed. We
do
not need a culture of waste. That's the last thing
Exactly.
So, now, I want to ask you about your report that SERAP is urging the Attorney General to start a public register of convicted, corrupt state governors and other public officials that have been convicted since 1999. So let's discuss that. What inspired that? Why 1999? Why is it limited to the Fourth Republic?
You see, let us say what had happened in the eras of the military. Because military government is not a system that is acceptable all over the world as way of governing people. Now let's say accountability starts in a democracy. And now we started democracy in 1999. Now, if there is a register of convicted corrupt persons, so It means we already have more or less like a blacklist. It's an attempt to, for example, name and shame. So when that is there, nobody can pretend to say, I have not been convicted or I have not done anything that is violent to the Nigerian nation. So that is the basic principle we want to establish by asking for the maintenance of that register.
Okay, and how will the public be able to access the register? Because we have some limitations with our freedom of information.
No, you see, it is when those who rule us Nigeria wants to play a fast one on us that will say there is limitation. There is no limitation once you rely on the Freedom of Information Act. There is no limitation.
But is that really the case, though, or is that also just a bit idealistic? Because really and truly, we are denied from a lot of information, if we're being honest.
That's
regardless
true.
of the law, because the law is not respected by a lot of the political elites.
See,
so that is our case.
You see, the thing to do is to say, okay, they are not letting us have the right that we have under the law, and then we sit back. For example, we know a lot of human rights organizations like SERAP, like Budget, like Enough is Not, that are making success of making use of this Freedom of Information Act. So we cannot say the law exists and it should not be obeyed. As a matter of fact, Supreme Court said it in Ganifa versus Togo and that every Nigerian must ensure that the law is obeyed. That's the minimum we hold this nation. Otherwise, we will leave the nations to the dogs, and those who come after us will say, what were you doing when they were violating the law?
Well, Mumuni, I'm interested in SERAP. I know you issue a lot of press statements and you go to court and you ask for information from government and all of that. What other things, does your civil society group do beyond just going to court?
Yes. As a matter of fact, for the lawyers that know litigation inside out, going to court is the toughest thing. So there are 3 parameters by which SERAP work. We do advocacy. When we see that an issue needs attending to, we advocate around it. If we didn't see change, we make publications around that issue. It is when those changes occur that we now go to court. So to us, going to court is not a tea party. It's not an easy thing. We don't like going to court, but we are compelled to go to court. That we have exhausted the 2 basic principles upon which we act: advocacy, publication. So going to court is to us a very, very last resort. So that's the way we operate. We pursue socio-economic rights of Nigerians. We pursue anti-corruption, and that is what we are set up for.
And how much success, have you been able to record in terms of winning cases in court, or in terms of being able to mobilize Nigerians to engage, along your lines of advocacy?
As a matter of fact, one of the serious tremendous success that I think we SERAP had was we took up this case of basic education fund. There is a national body called National Primary Education Commission. We have this state equivalents in various states.
The Universal Basic Education
Thank you
Commission.
very much. Good.
UBEC.
Yes. We wrote to the ICPC in 2007. And ICP, we alleged that certain states were collecting the federal government counterpart funding, and they were diverting it to purposes other than education. They are mismanaging it, they are embezzling it. And ICPC wrote to say they have investigated what we have said, and they found it to be true. In that process, ICPC recovered 3.7 billion naira. ICPC also prosecuted those that were found wanting. Some of them have been jailed, some of them are left free. It means those who prosecuted got it wrong in some instances and they got it right in some instances. So that is part of our achievement. So that does not even include litigation at all. It was in part of our advocacy, the 2 first steps that we use in working, those ones occurred. So to say that we have achieved all that we want to achieve, that is a lie. But to say that we have not done something, I think we are making progress. You see, like when I had the opportunity of meeting Sheikh Anifa with me during his lifetime, when I was in Part 3 in 1988 in Lasso. And we wanted to write an article on the judgment that Sono just gave, saying every Nigerian is his brother's keeper. So
you went to Lasso Law Faculty?
Yes.
That means you and I came from the same department.
Good.
Yeah, I came after you.
Okay. So we were there, and Danny was saying, what do you young lawyers want to do after you have finished the law? I said, I want to be an advocate, a human rights advocate. He said, are you ready to confront a situation of as if you are dialoguing with the deaf? He said, Nigerian problem is, it's like a dialogue with the deaf. When you repeat a thing, you have to be ready to continue to repeat it, until things change. And you see, that is the story that we have in Nigeria. But the alternative would be to say, okay, they are not listening, let's leave it and let them go. So that to us is not a viable alternative.
Well, I'm glad that you're not leaving it. So let's talk about the status of your petition to the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva regarding the detention of Omoyele Sowore. What are your hopes in that regard, and do you have any updates? Has there been a response?
No, there's no response yet. But what we believe at SERAP is that, you see, Nigerian government especially, when things are still within the confines of Nigeria and when you are agitating for it, it's either they respond or most of the time they don't respond. But when you now internationalize the issue, you see, the international shame, more or less, gives them a way to think the other side and try to address your issue. So that is why we have gone to the international community to say, these are the things that this government is doing that is not okay. And you people that say you govern the international arena, you don't do it to citizens of your country. So help us call the Nigerian government to order. So we have not received response, but whenever we file a petition to the at the international level, we see more often than not that things change in Nigeria. And that is why we are exploring that international angle to it.
Okay, just a very quick question out of curiosity. Suing the Senate for their budgets on their cards of 5.5 billion, what would have been an adequate budget for you, actually?
You see...
No, he's not talking about adequate budget.
No,
he's against the idea of buying a car.
No.
Beyond the cars as well, just like general allocations, what kind of a figure would you have seen that would have seemed reasonable to you? Because clearly,
good. Given that we have been given that we have been used to wastages all this while, I think if they say we are budgeting 1 billion naira, it will still make sense, because at least you can't, people that have been used to wastages, you cannot control them immediately and say, let's come to zero level. Well, we'll still tolerate them, but this tolerance that we think we are playing with should not be continued. Because it's because we didn't ask where were the cars.
Have you asked any of the 8th National Assembly senators, where are the vehicles you were given?
No, we are asking them now. We are asking them as a body to tell us what is happening.
Well, quickly, Mumuni, before we wrap this up, we would like to have your take on what is happening at the moment.
Yes.
The diplomatic rift over the killing of Nigerians in South Africa. Do you think that there are other steps that government can take, particularly now that, the official reaction from South Africa doesn't look too encouraging enough? I mean, Naledi Pandor, the South African foreign minister, is more or less calling Nigerians in South Africa drug barons and kidnappers, and I found that really, really shocking. What do you think the Nigerian government can do? She's even said there will be no compensation, because there is no law in South Africa that allows for compensation for attacks of this nature.
Good. I believe that in South Africa, they operate under the principle of rule of law. And then whatever happens, if a law is violated, because that is, in answer to the point that they said Nigerians that are having problems in South Africa are the criminals. So what happens to their law enforcement machinery? So they should take it up.
Mumuni, let's take a short break.
Thank you.
A commercial break. When we return, you can continue.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Morning Show now on the Arise News channel. Still with us in the studio is Adetokunbo Mumuni, a legal practitioner and executive director, Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP. Yes, Mumuni, before we went on break, you were reacting to the statement by Naledi Pando that many Nigerians in South Africa are either drug barons or human traffickers.
Good. You see, what I understand is that the South Africa that came out of apartheid and got independence around 1994. 1994. It's a society that is based on rule of law. And when you say you are a society based on rule of law, what you are simply saying is that whatever happens, whatever offense anybody commits, it has to be followed according to the due process. Now, if you are saying Nigerians are criminals, so if indeed they violated the law in South Africa, let the law take its course. The proper thing would not have been to say, let citizens of South Africa take it upon themselves to now start butchering or killing Nigerians. To us, that is not a society that's governed by rule of law. It's the same thing. Nobody says anybody should go and violate the law of any land. So, if that is the position, let their law take its course. And Nigerian government over the years have not known Nigerian government to support any Nigerian that violates the law of any other country. How much? Anything can happen here, but in a distant land, whatever you must do, you have to obey the laws of the land. So, what I think Nigerian government should do, they have done, because nobody should encourage, either by deliberate act or omission, to say Nigerians should start retaliating and start going after South African business interests here. That one will do nobody any good, because to us it will appear as if we are trying to say two wrongs make a right, and which is not true. So diplomatic channels can be used in resolving it. Even if we say that we are closing temporarily our embassy in South Africa to let them know the implication of what they are doing to us, that will still be okay. But the argument of the South African foreign minister or whoever made that statement that Nigerians in South Africa are criminals does not make sense to me. It doesn't.
And neither does it make sense to me. But let's talk about SERAP's position on the government's probe of the Obasanjo government's $16 billion investment in the power sector, which has failed to bear fruit. Why is it that you're supporting this probe? There was a previous probe done by the House of Reps. Some people feel that it's a deliberate witch hunt. So what is your position on this, and why have you taken that?
You see, if an issue becomes of public importance, like power is so much fundamental to Nigerians, and we hear that so much money has been expended on power, and what we see repeatedly is that Nigerians now pay for powers they didn't consume, now pay for powers that are not in existence. So I think it requires an inquiry. If indeed an inquiry had been made earlier, like the House of Reps thing, which had actually shown results, then we won't be where we are now. And that is the point. To us, it is not a question of Obasanjo's regime alone. Various governments, since we are in democracy, have spent so much, enormous amount of money on power, and we are still where we are. So I think it needs to be probed, and probed effectively so that we have results. That's the point. I'm not particular about Obasanjo's regime. I'm particular about every government that had spent public money on financing of power, and we are still where we are.
Okay. I'd like to just quickly take us back to the xenophobia discussion on South Africa. Two countries that are the highest, that have the greatest economies in Africa, but at the same time, really high unemployment rates, and also education is a problem, and that has fueled a lot of this that's going on. How can governments like the Nigerian government and the South African government start to bridge these gaps? What are the sorts of schemes and messages that an organization like SERAP would push for?
Good. You see, every country has a responsibility to itself and to its citizens to make life whole and meaningful for its citizens. So let us look at what is driving Nigerians out of Nigeria to South Africa. Probably because the infrastructures here are not okay, the enabling environment to survive within the ambits of law are not there. So I will call on Nigerian government to tackle the root cause of the movement of Nigerians to South Africa so that we have a better life here, so that we won't go and be doing whatever does not make economic sense in South Africa. Again, South Africans too, and you see, and I think that was why Nelson Mandela, after independence of South Africa, didn't do what you call a vengeance thing against the whites in South Africa, because he knew that the blacks are still very much backwards in terms of education, in terms of economic well-being. And that was sensible of the grand old man. And that, to me, is what the present South African government should start doing. Preach to your people that this killing of innocent foreigners will not solve the problem. Educate yourself, find something economically sensible in doing, so that you don't think all your problems are brought in by foreigners. To me, that makes a lot of sense, rather than xenophobic attack on foreigners.
Well, Mumuni, let me take you back to this issue about the proposed plan to purchase new vehicles for members of the Senate. Yes, you've gone to court, but in terms of strategy, did you make any attempt to ask, do an FOI, Freedom of Information request, in terms of the details before rushing to court? Don't you think that would have been perhaps the first step?
Good. So
that you get basic information and then you know what the truth is, rather than acting on the basis of what is in the newspapers?
Good. You see, the way Nigerian system works is to say if certain information comes to you and you don't want to act on it, is to leave you behind the time, and a lot of things will have passed. Good, that will have been the best thing. But those that gives us information, we are resorted to what they give us, and when we pursue it, we find that there is correctness in it. So that is why we think we don't have to explore this possibility of getting information, because the same source of information that we have always relied on, that they've not told us is false, is the same thing that we are relying on now. In any case, once you say they are false, you don't have to defend anything. Let us go to court. If you say they are false, either you tell the court they are false, so that will be a basis for the court to dismiss our case, rather than pursuing frivolities and whatever does not make sense.
Are you aware of any precedents, in this regard in Nigerian courts? Any precedent, any similar case in the past that was determined in favor of the other party?
Which other party?
No, you taking the case, the petitioner.
Yes.
Are you aware of any precedent that this kind of case, has been determined by a Nigerian court?
Let me.
In other words, I'm saying, what gives you the confidence that your course of action will succeed?
You see, a defendant to any course of action, any court matter, has a right to raise any defense under the sun. It is when he raises the defense that the person who petitions will now find a way around the defense that he has raised to now continue to make sense. Otherwise, if you raise a case against somebody and he raises a defense and you don't have any answer to defend, that means your case will be dismissed. So that is the trajectory through which litigations go in Nigeria. So let's see. We know that the Nigerian judiciary is the only legally recognized forum to treat this matter, and that's why we have gone to court. The alternative would have been, let's do the South African thing and start burning houses. Let's start looking for senators and start hacking them down. That does not make sense in a democratic society.
Well, yes, it's always worth a shot. We cannot continue to allow profligacy of our government officials. Now, I mentioned Obasanjo earlier, so I'm reminded of his 1976 Nigerianization policy, which is what Adams Oshiomhole is now currently advocating with regards to this South Africa-Nigeria diplomatic imbroglio to nationalize South African businesses. What is your take on that? And also his call, the call of Adams Oshiomhole for Nigerians to boycott South African businesses.
Good. As a moral thing, it makes sense. But has Nigerian government done a research to know, for example, how many Nigerians are in South Africa? How many Nigerian businesses are in South Africa? Because when you want to do a tit-for-tat thing, you have this burden of balancing it so that at the end of the day, your people don't get seriously penalized by your action. That's the way I look at it, and that is why I don't support what Adam Oshiomhole said in terms of nationalization of South African business here. So once you have done the arithmetic and you think that they will lose more, it's okay. But if you have not done that in terms of concrete evidence, then it may be too dangerous for Nigerians.
And boycotting South African businesses?
No, we can do that. We can do that as individuals. I may say I'm not using MTN again. I may say I don't want to patronize ShopRite or whatever again.
Don't forget that they are also hiring Nigerians here, which is one of the greatest problems that people have had with the boycotting. It's not about going against and standing for something. That's brilliant. The fact of the matter is, these are Nigerian companies. It's an SA franchise, but they're Nigerian companies employing Nigerians. And really and truly, we're just detrimenting ourselves taking a violent stand, right?
That's what I say. And that is very, very important. That's why I say, as Nigerian government set up a commission, more or less, to look at where the balance tilts. For example, MTN in Nigeria, I don't think it only has South African connection. The people that are running it are Nigerians.
Nigerian-owned buildings.
Yes.
Nigerian stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it doesn't go that way, the way Adam Oshiomhole is saying it, unless Nigerian government has done a comparison to see where indeed the pendulum fall.
Well, Mumuni, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
And all the best with your class action suit.
Thank you very much.
When it is determined, one way or the other, we'll be here to review it.
It will be in the news once it comes.